Supply chain management, sourcing. Procurement is the acquisition of goods or services. Sourcing refers to a number of procurement practices, aimed at finding, evaluating and engaging suppliers of goods and services. Role in the supply chain. Set of business processes required to purchase goods and services. Will tasks be performed by a source internal to the company or a third party? Globalization creates many more sourcing options with both considerable opportunity and potential risk. In-housing and outsourcing. In-housing process completed by using company's own personnel and resource. Outsourcing hiring an outside organization to provide company with goods and services. In-housing advantage. Independence. Easier planning. Less spent on logistics. Shorter communication routes. In-housing disadvantage. More staff needed. Specialist knowledge required. New challenges faced. Resource, planning. New infrastructure etc. Outsourcing advantage. Not much staff needed. Less specialist knowledge needed. Less money invested, machinery, fixtures, and fitting. Outsourcing disadvantage. More work for finding the right companies dependent on external suppliers. Costs of logistics. In-housing and outsourcing factor are costs, added value, time, production capacity, financial capacity, quality control, workforce stability, production volume etc. Principles of outsourcing. Outsourcing is the act of moving the company's non-core business activities and related decision responsibility to outside provider. The business function that are outsourced. Call center services, logistics services, information technology services, tax management etc. Depending on its scope, outsourcing can be implemented at 4 different stages. Outtasking. CO managed services. Managed services. Full outsourcing. Outsourcing benefits. Increase operational efficiency. Increase speed to market new product. Reduce the risk of business failure. Increase focus on the firm's core competencies. Cost analysis. Cost analysis is an attempt to obtain the lowest fair and reasonable price of outsourced product and service. 3 main points of cost analysis are: lowest best possible value. Fair, begin charged the same as another buyer would be charged. Reasonable, paying not more than the product worth. The ultimate purpose of cost analyses is to reduce unnecessary cost. 4 principles of cost analysis. Capture cost drivers, not cost elements. Build community-specific cost driver. Consider total cost of ownership. Start simply and then the complexity to the cost analysis only as needed. Total cost of ownership is a management accounting philosophy that includes all the supply chain related costs expected to be incurred throughout the entire life of a product. Acquisition cost is the cost associated with purchase. Ownership cost is the cost associated with ongoing use of purchase product and service. Post-ownership cost is the cost associated with disposal and quality assurance of a product and service. Activity-based costing refers to a cost accounting system that aims to identify money losers or winners by linking cost drivers directly to products or services that require activities consuming resources. Activity-based costing ABC begins with the dissection of supply chain activities in terms of their causal relationship with cost objects and then specifies where non-value-adding activities exist. ABC makes the following fundamental premises. Cost objects consume activities. Activities consume resources. The consumption of resources drives cost. The understanding of cost drivers is critical for managing overhead expenses and minimizing cost errors. Life cycle costing, LCC, is a cost management technique that determines the total discounted costs of owning, maintaining, and disposing of an asset over its useful life. Life cycle costing, LCC, uses a present value method to assess the value of an asset at the time of purchase, because not all the operating costs incur at the same time. LCC can be broken down into three cost components: costs of ownership, period of time, discount rate. Life cycle costing simple formula: LCC equals capital costs plus lifetime operating cost plus lifetime maintenance cost plus disposal costs residual value. Value analysis is a systematic, organized way to identify unnecessary supply chain activities used to create the intended functions of a product, service, or system. Value analysis step: goal setting phase, planning phase, evaluation phase, assessment phase, implementation phase, reporting follow-up phase. Stages of supply sources: survey and discovery, inquiry, evaluation, selection, development. These sources of supplier information can be classified into four different categories: published industry sources, internal sources, professional sources, international sources. 1. Published industry sources: trade journals, industry buyer's guide. 2. Internal sources: supplier files, supplier catalogs. 3. Professional sources: sales representatives, trade exhibits/trade shows. 4. International sources: U.S. Department of Commerce, International Chambers of Commerce. Supplier selection method. Supplier selection 5 methods are: categorical method, weighted point method, cost ratio method, analytical hierarchy process method, multiple attribute utility theory method. Categorical method. In this method, a purchasing manager is required to keep and maintain a first performance record of all suppliers. This method is simple and straightforward. Weighted point method. An application of the weighted point method requires the assignment of an appropriate weight to each performance factor. This method is quantitatively oriented. It is more objective than the categorical method. Cost ratio method. The cost ratio method relates all identifiable purchasing costs to the value of shipments received from individual supplier. Analytical hierarchy process method. This method is one of the most popular method for selecting the supplier. It is a scoring method that helps the purchasing manager. It does not require the arbitrary assignment of weights to each supplier selection attribute. Multiple attribute utility theory method. This method was initially proposed by Min, 1994, for supplier selection due to its ability to take into account both qualitative and quantitative factors influencing supplier selection in the presence of risk of uncertainty. Supplier Certification Program is a continuous incoming quality improvement process that recognized suppliers who meet the buying firm's establishment quality delivery performances and price requirements. Supply chain activities are: preventive maintenance, supplier education and training, integration of design, engineering, and product testing into the certification program. Cultural changes for total quality management, TQM. Supply risk management. Supply risk is defined as the likelihood and consequence of events at any point in the end-to-end supply from sources of raw materials to end use of customers. Supply risk management as the coordination of activities to direct and control an enterprise's end-to-end supply with regard to supply chain risk. Typology of supply chain risk are: internal risk, sourcing risk, operational risk, external risk, financial risk, demand volatility risk. Global sourcing refers to the practice of buying goods and services outside the geopolitical boundary of the country. E-purchasing refers to paperless purchasing practices through web to facilitate business-to-business electronic communication, information exchange, and transaction support. Ways of e-purchasing are: EDI, XML, Internet, intranet, extranet, email, electronic catalog ordering, groupware. E-auction is an online, real-time reverse auction between the buyers and suppliers where suppliers can submit multiple bids during the time period of auction.